Biology paper 2. Section A. If it's the geography looking thing, then for part A, part 1, it says identify the site with the highest incidence of disease colonies. You're going to write Capricorn and Bunkers Group. Capricorn and Bunkers Group. For part 2, it says deduce whether there is a trend in the incidence of white syndrome, blah blah blah. You're going to write there is no clear trend. There is no clear trend. For B, part 1, you're going to write, okay, just draw an arrow, right? Just write an arrow note thingy. Effects increase with temperature. Anomalies. Effects increase with temperature. Anomalies. Second arrow, you're going to write effects increase for all different coral covers. Effects increase for all different coral covers. Another point, you're going to write harmful effect is higher. In coral covers between 50 to 75%. Part 2. You're going to write 25 to 49%. Part 3. You're going to write when the corals are closer to each other, then the transmission will be easier. When the corals are closer to each other, then the transmissions will be easier. C, part 1. It says compare and contrast the data, right? You're going to write comparisons, colon. Weak correlation in both. You're going to write difference, colon. More coral reefs with low percentage. More coral reefs with low percentage of coral cover in 2002 to 2003. Part 2. Coral cover lower on the reefs. Coral cover lower on the reefs that have high temperature. Part D, you're going to draw an arrow, right? And write, won't be able to keep their skeletons. Another arrow, habitats may be lost. Third arrow, enzymes may denature. Part E, you're going to write, it is a real-life environmental conditions. Second question, it says the figure shows a tripeptide. Part A, label one peptide bond in the molecule. What you're going to do is, you know where in the left side where the N in the middle and the other C, like before they connect, you're going to draw an arrow to that and write peptide bond. Do the same on the other side. So it goes N, C, C. That's where your arrow should be drawn first. And then N, C, C. Another arrow from there. And then N, C, C. Part B. Arrow, spider silk from spider webs. Another arrow, insulin controls blood glucose levels. Insulin controls blood glucose levels. Third one, amylase breaking down starch. C, outline the action taken by the diaphragm during inhalation. You're going to write the diaphragm contracts when you inhale. Third question, there's a table. Compare and contrast the mode of nutrition between detritivores and heterotrophs. On the similarity, you're going to write heterotrophic. Heterotrophic. For difference, you're going to write internal digestion for detritrophs and external digestion for saprotrophs. For the first one, B, part 1, it says draw a food chain from this web. Just do one from plant roots, arrow up to nematodes, arrow to small soil arthropods, and then point that to field mouse. Part 2 of question 3, explain the reasons for food chains rarely containing more than 4 or 5 trophic levels. You're going to write an arrow and write energy is lost between trophic levels. Second arrow, you're going to write 90% is lost during transfer. Comma, only 10% goes through. Third arrow. Since energy is lost, comma, the higher trophic levels have low biomass. Part C. You're going to write, the reaction rate will be limited. The reaction rate will be limited by the limiting factor to its minimum value. The reaction rate will be limited by the limiting factor to its minimum value. For example, as temperature increases, then the rate of reaction will also increase, because enzymes that control photosynthesis are impacted by temperature. If temperature exceeds a certain temperature, then the rate of photosynthesis will decrease. I'm going to read this again. The reaction rate will be limited by the limiting factor to its minimum value. For example, as temperature increases, then the rate of reaction will also increase, because enzymes that control photosynthesis are impacted by temperature. If temperature exceeds a certain temperature, then the rate of photosynthesis will decrease. Part D. All of the leaves in the image are from Solanum, a wild genus of tomato. State one cause of variation in plants such as the tomato. You're going to write mutations. Four. It's about an artery. Part A. Explain how specialized structures of arteries help them achieve their functions. You're going to draw an arrow. Arteries have a narrow lumen that maintains high blood pressure. Arteries have a narrow lumen that maintains high blood pressure. Second arrow. Rupture of arteries is prevented by thick elastic walls. Rupture of arteries is prevented by thick elastic walls. Third point. Smooth endothelium reduces friction. B, part 1. State one process that produces ATP. You're going to write cell respiration. Part 2. It says outline the use of ATP. You're going to write, it is the source of energy in the cell. Part C. State one function of epinephrine in the human body. You're going to write, prepares the body for action. Prepares the body for action. Fight or flight mode from adrenal glands. Fight or flight mode from adrenal glands. From section B, this is answer one question, right? Choose question 5. Substances can move into and out of cells through cell membrane. Part A, it says outline the significance of surface area to volume ratio in limitation of cell size. You're going to write the overall surface area of the cell has an effect on the rate of the materials that are being exchanged. The overall surface area of the cell has an effect on the rate of materials that are being exchanged. So when the size of the cell increases, so does its metabolism. When the volume of the cell increases, so does its surface area. But not the same. Cells that are present in growth areas are consistently dividing. Cells that are present in growth areas are consistently dividing, and they stay small. As the cell is growing, then the more materials need to be inserted. As the cell is growing, then the more materials need to be inserted. Part B. Osmosis is the movement of a solvent such as water through a semi-permeable membrane into a solution. Through a semi-permeable membrane into a solution of higher solute concentration that tends to equalize the concentrations of solute. On the two sides of the membrane. Okay, new sentence, right? It is a form of diffusion that occurs in water. It happens from an area of low solute concentration of water to an area of high solute concentration. This occurs until an equilibrium is reached. It does not use ATP and channel proteins are put into use. It does not use ATP and channel proteins are put into use. Part C. The small intestine is where all the nutrients are absorbed. Into the bloodstream. With the help of villi. The small intestine is very long. Therefore, it will maximize absorption. The muscles in the small intestine are circular and longitudinal. That contracts to mix the food. That contracts to mix the food with enzymes and moves it along the gut. The pancreas secretes enzymes such as lipase, amylase, and protease. To the small intestine. Never mind. To the small intestine, and this helps with digestion. The small intestine is where the final stages of digestion of lipids. The small intestine is where the final stages. The small intestine is where the final stages of digestion of lipids, carbohydrates, proteins, and nucleic acids occurs. The use of the villi helps absorption. An increase in its surface area. The villi also have microvilli to increase the surface area even more. Most chemical digestions occurs in the small intestine? The structure of the small intestine wall consists of serosa, muscle layers, submucosa, and mucosa. There is also peristalsis, occurring in the small intestine. It's the waves of muscle contraction.